Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ajua. I would like to say a very big thank you to you all. The support I gained for the previous video I posted, massive, and I can't say thank you enough. There were a few things I noted, a couple of people wanting me to start a GoFundMe or something like a funding page so that I can receive some money, and I'm not going to do that, not because I feel too big to do that or anything. I appreciate the thought behind that. And I know if I did anything like that, I have people who would support me. But I just don't want to do that to set a tone for this channel. It is a fragrance channel. And I believe if you are up to the task of having a fragrance channel, which normally starts off as a hobby, then sometimes it culminates into a career. You are trying to make money, if not, as a hobby from the channel and asking people to pay for certain things for you. That idea does not really sit well with me. I understand that people want to support channels, help you grow, which I appreciate, but doing that video saying I am broke, I think probably I should just give it a little more explanation, probably in further videos or subsequent videos. It's not to a point that I cannot feed or anything. I believe the idea of setting up a funding page or GoFundMe or PayPal to receive funds from, viewers, it's only ideal when the situation is dire, like suddenly losing a job or suddenly losing your house or something. I'm for that idea. But if it is like the daily, everyday, normal, life, I'm not for that. So for that reason, I'm not going to set up any GoFundMe or PayPal to receive money from my fans just because I say I'm broke. Me being broke is as a result of some business decisions, which at the end of the day, I know is going to generate some money for me. Sometimes you have to go through some of these things at the beginning of certain businesses, and I believe it is going to get better soon. So thank you so much for every idea that has been given as to me going with my old fragrances. I'm going to do that. I'm also going to chip in one or two new fragrances, as time goes on, because I know the whole social media, YouTube thing is a very visual, latest, what is new, people wanting to see what is new, the newest shiny thing. So I understand that people would come for you, would support you, even if you do the older fragrances. But if you really want to stay relevant here on YouTube, you definitely need to be chipping in the new ones, every now and then. So I'll be doing those two alongside, each other. So that is what I wanted to clear out before I start this video. There are so many things I'll be sharing as I move along, in subsequent videos. So thank you so much for your support. Those reaching out to me through email, wanting to help, I appreciate that. I'm so grateful. My mom just called me immediately. She watched the video. She was like, do you need money? And I told her, no, I don't need money. I know she's the first person I'll go to if I ever needed any money, per se, if I'm really hard pressed for money. So I appreciate every single one of you. So thank you so much. So let's start off with one of my favorite topics when it comes to fragrances, similar but better. In as much as we want the best out of our monies, when we are spending money, there's a plethora of fragrances all smelling the same or alike, but there's always something that is like better or superior to the other. And that is what I have here in this video. So I have about 8, 9, 10 categories or sets here that I want to discuss. And I'm going to start off with one fragrance I've been meaning to get for a very long time. I've had it for about 2 weeks now, just that I haven't been on YouTube, so I wasn't able to talk about it. And that is going to be Felicity, which is fashioned after the Kiali Wedding Silk Santal, which I have a small 10 ml here, the Wedding Silk Santal. It is one of the fragrances from Kiali that I absolutely adore. In as much as I'm not really like a huge fan of Kiali fragrances, this I think is a phenomenal job done with the sugar, the shampoo gugu, the fraisier, very lovely, beautiful, flirty, romantic. It gives me romance, and this is a very beautiful one. And fortunately, we have here the inspired version, Caf Felicity, and I'm going to compare it to a fragrance that I have already spoken about on this channel, Latte Abad, which when it first came out, a lot of people were saying it is inspired by the wedding silk santal. When I did the first review, I said to my nose it wasn't, and it still doesn't give me exact thing. It's going to remind you of Care Felicity or the wedding silk santal, but it is definitely not the same thing. They give you almost a very similar vibe, but this one is on the cotton candy sweet, creamy coconut and plum with a bit of sugar, whereas this one is all about the champagne or shampoo gugu with the freesia, the vanilla, the sugar. That is all this one is all about, and that, you know, woody, sandalwoody touch is very beautiful. Both fragrances are very pretty. They give me the vibe of pretty for the sake of being pretty vibes, nothing else, you know, wedding vibes, church vibes, virgin bridal vibes, you know, that is the vibe that this one gives me, and I love them both. However, in as much as I feel they are quite similar, they are also different. When in comparison to the wedding silk santal, I think Care Felicity is definitely the better option. If you are taking it on that face value, Care Felicity by Paris Corner is a better alternative to the wedding silk santal. Whilst this one, although it's going to remind you of the wedding silk santal, it is not a dupe to it. It's going to give you a very similar feel, but this one has that plum, that coconut, which sets it apart. In this scenario, I would say if you are looking for a definite, accurate, one-to-one, spot-on dupe for Carefully wedding silk santal, go for Care Felicity. Whilst if you want something in the likeness of it but with more of a coconut vibe, go for this. So I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I would say they are both very phenomenal fragrances, whereas Care Felicity is going to give you a very great lasting power, projection, and everything is like on point. This is on the mute side of things. It's a little more toned down as compared to this the Care Felicity, which is more, no, it's not in your face, but it's more loud than this, you know, but they're going to give you a very similar feel, although Care Felicity is going to give you the better alternative to the wedding silk santal by Kayali. So I think Care Felicity is the better option here, where I would also highly recommend this one as for people who love a more coconutty approach to the wedding silk santal. The next fragrances I'm going to talk about are going to be the whole Bianco Latte vibes or inspired by fragrances. I have just my little decant of Bianco Latte here. It's almost done, but in this scenario I have 5 fragrances which are also inspired by Bianco Latte. This includes Latte Abad, and Latte Abad is from a house called Hayakat Atar. I got a bunch of decants from Tels Perfume GH. I am back to Ghana, so I'm going to enjoy as much decants as possible. So this is called Latte Abad from Hayakat Atar, which is also inspired by Bianco Latte. In this hand I have Rem Vanilla from the house Alam Al Zafaran. I'm reading from a book that I have here. Alam Al Zafaran. It's not Al Zafaran. That, I think that is a different house altogether. Then I have here the OG Eclair from Latafa, which has been highly praised by a lot of people, known to be almost a spot-on dupe for Bianco Latte. And I'm going to go with the Caramel Cascade, which I had, but I have since fully utilized my bottle. I'm through with my bottle. I thoroughly enjoyed Caramel Cascade, although it is not everybody's favorite. It's really calms down, becomes like almost an accurate interpretation of Bianco Latte when it settles and, you know, macerates. And I have with me here Creamy Velvet from Caf Latte, and this, the bottle here, or atomizer, whatever it's called, it leaks. So I don't know what happened. It leaks and I'm almost out of the Cream Velvet from Caf Latte. So when you compare these 5 fragrances, all being, you know, associated with Bianco Latte, I'm going to say when it comes to Latte Abad from Hayakat Atam, it is going to give you the most quiet, muted version of Bianco Latte. Bianco Latte can be a little loud, the original one, but this is like the creamy, less intense version, whereas the one from Alam Al Zafaran, Rem Vanilla, is going to give you a more spicy Bianco Latte. It has something which I perceive as a little more spicy, like a cardamom touch to it. So it is the most spicy of the 5 that I have come across. And then when it comes to the OG Eclair, that is going to give you a spot-on one-to-one dupe of Bianco Latte. And Caramel Cascade is going to give you the more milky, floral, nuanced version, whilst Cadillac creamy velvet is going to give you almost an identical feel to the it gives me more of the Latte Abad from Hayat Atta, which is like on the milder side of things, but it's going to give you the same Bianco Latte nuance when it settles down. Of all these 5 fragrances, the most accurate is going to be Eclair. It is still Eclair, and it came out before all these fragrances. All these ones are coming out months after Eclair, and I think if you have this one, you can just stick to it. You don't need to go for any of these Haircut Atta, Latte Abad, or the Rem Vanilla. They are all good. They all dry down to the same Bianco Latte, but I think Caramel Eclair is like one of the better options out there in terms of the scent profile, the longevity, the sillage. All of these fragrances, velvet, creamy velvet, Latte Abad, they are all good. Rem Vanilla, velvet, creamy velvet, they are all good, but none of them is going to beat Eclair in my opinion. The next fragrance I have here are going to be 2 fragrances. Both fragrances I have, and that is going to be the one that is fashioned after Maison Crivelli's Hibiscus Mahajad. I have a sample of it here, and it's a very beautiful floral hibiscus rose, sort of woody touch that it has. And this I have here, Paris Corner Hibiscus Nirvana, which I think is the most accurate. I'm just going to state it straight ahead or straight away. I think Hibiscus Nirvana is the most accurate as compared to Le Prestige Royale, which I also have. The bulk of my fragrances, I couldn't bring them by air because, but like taking extra luggages, like extra cost, I was able to do just one extra luggage at the cost of $200. I wasn't going to do any more than that. So the bulk of my fragrances are coming by sea. So yeah, I'm expecting them in the next couple of weeks. So I have my Le Prestige Royale back in the US that will be shipped to me in due course. So most of my fragrances are there, and I'll be doing maybe just put the fragrances on the screen until I receive all my fragrances. So we have here Hibiscus Nirvana, which to me is the most accurate to Hibiscus Mahajad, aside the Le Prestige Royale. To me, it is like on the lighter side. Le Prestige Royale is on the lighter side. It didn't give me that oomph, I remember getting a sample of that and I fell in love with it immediately. But when I got my full bottle, it became a different fragrance to me. It didn't give me that oomph, that punch I was looking for. However, someone some time back told me I should try the one from Paris Corner, and I have a decant here, and I agree. This is 100% going to give you Maison Crivelli's Hibiscus Mahajad. It's giving you the same intensity, the potency, the sillage. It's very beautiful, intense, and I think the one from Paris Corner, Hibiscus Nirvana or Hibiscus Nirvana, is the most accurate in terms of getting a dupe or an inspired by fragrance of Hibiscus Mahajad. The next 2 fragrances are going to be Caf Latte from Cadillac, and I'm going to compare this one to a fragrance that I feel is very similar to this, which is going to be from Swiss Arabia, Vanilla Toffee. I think it is very similar. They have very similar nuances with that sugary, toffee, burnt condensed milk or sugary milky tone to them. They are both very beautiful, but I feel if you have smelled one, you're not too far from the other or smelling the other. You might not necessarily even need both fragrances in your collection because they give me a very similar feel with the toffee, the milk, the bit of a florals to it, that condensed milk, burnt sugar accord that both fragrances have, and that coffee. They all have that kawa coffee feel to them, not that Nescafe coffee sort of feel, but they have that spiced coffee feel to them, which is quite different from the normal Western coffee, and it's very beautiful. However, I feel they are very similar. They give off a very similar feel to my nose. Even after maceration, both of them give me a very similar feel. Vanilla Toffee and then Caf Latte, just that Vanilla Toffee is more on the spice, more on the intense, much more intense than this. This one is on a little on the milder side, although very potent. But in comparison to this, I feel this vanilla toffee is on the more spicy, more intense, more toffee-like, nuance. Whilst this is like a little toned down, and this one feels a little more complex as compared to this. However, both are very beautiful with that butterscotch, toffee, vanilla, creamy goodness, milky. They are both very beautiful. In this scenario, I'm not going to say any of these two is better than the other. I think if you have one, you might not necessarily need the other. They give a very similar feel on skin, in the air. They feel very similar. So Caf Latte from Caf Latte, and then Swiss Arabian's vanilla toffee, I say they are almost at par, smelling very similar, at least to my nose. And you might not necessarily need both fragrances in your collection. One of these fragrances in this next two is not going to be my favorite. I think when I was one of the first people to talk about this on YouTube, Cake Temptation, and my review was not such a positive one. Although I love Paris Corner, I appreciate them, their fragrances. When it comes to Cake Temptation, I think it's very synthetic. It doesn't give me anything cakey or something that I would like to wear. I don't think I'm ever going to wear this fragrance and say I'm going out, and feel comfortable wearing this. However, it smells very similar to a fragrance I've been praising a lot here on this channel, and that is going to be Spanish Vanilla from Al Rehab. This is a new bottle. My other bottle is also not here with me. I'm expecting it, in a few weeks. But this is like a backup bottle I got like a couple of months ago when I got my initial bottle, and I had this one waiting for me back home here in Ghana. These two fragrances are very similar, both giving off that cakey, cheesecake sort of, feel, and then some berries. I perceive raspberry in this, and I get a very similar raspberry nuance in this, although this is actually known to have the note of strawberry. I still get a very similar feel with the cheesecakey, vanilla, creamy nuances in both fragrances, whereas Cake Temptation comes across as very synthetic and screechy. Even after going through a process of maceration, I find it quite screechy and cheap smelling. But when it comes to Spanish Vanilla, it doesn't give me that feel, that syntheticness I find in this. I find very less of that in this. This, although gives you a similar synthetic vibe from the beginning, it macerates and then it turns into something very beautiful, like a thick, rich, realistic vanilla and some raspberry nuance, whereas this one also has a very similar vibe but feels very cheap smelling, very synthetic, and after maceration, or it's still going through the process of developing and aging, but I still find it very screechy, and I'm not sure I'm ever going to wear this as a fragrance that I'm ever taking out. So between these two, go for Spanish Vanilla if you find the EDP or the oil. The oil concentration is also very beautiful. I have both of them and they smell very, intense and strong. This is like headache inducing for me. It's overly powerful, overly synthetic, and I'm not enjoying this one at all. So I'll say go for Spanish Vanilla over Cake Temptation by Paris Corner. When it comes to these next two, I think I'm going to do a dedicated video for these because I think they deserve a dedicated video. And that is going to be Alexandra II by Zerjov, and then the Alexandra II, the anniversary edition. This was launched in 2024, whilst this one was launched way back, but there's an upgrade. This is quite different from the OG Alexandra II by Zerjov, but the same house. They are both very beautiful, but one is just a little more animalic, than the other. The OG is less animalic, don't get it wrong. It is quite an animalic fragrance. The OG Alexandra II by Zerjov is quite an animalic fragrance, but in comparison to the anniversary edition, this is like more skanky, more on the fecal side. This gives me a more Middle Eastern vibe, whereas although this one will give you a mild, tolerable Middle Eastern woody touch to it, it is more woody than oud to my nose. Whereas this, not the 40th anniversary, but the anniversary edition is more of the oud. This one is giving me more wood, whilst this one is giving me the actual oud, So I'll say I love them both. They are both very phenomenal, classy, dressed up, vibe. and I love them both, So in this scenario, it will depend on which one you gravitate towards more, whether you want a more woody, powdery, or a more wood, Middle Eastern, forward. That is what is going to determine what you go for. So I'll give you like a detailed comparison between these two, but I think these two are phenomenal fragrances. I love them both. They smell very similar, but I love them both, so I can't choose between these two. I'm going to go with two other fragrances that I feel are quite similar, but I also find differences here and there. They are from two entire, different houses, and that is going to be Amore Cafe. I think I've spoken about Latte, Cafe Latte from Caf Latte, which is fashioned after Amore Cafe from Mansera. And this, to my nose, smells super similar to this fragrance by the Be My Cookie. I'll find a house and put it somewhere, but Be My Cookie is a fragrance that is quite similar to Mansera's Amore Cafe to my nose. They smell quite identical, with Be My Cookie just being a tad bit animalic. It gives me more of an animalic approach, whereas this one is more on the clean, vanilla, creamy, chocolatey, cookie, vibe. And this one is also that cookie vibe, just that it's more animalic. It has that animalic, it's not civet, but there's something musky animalic about this, which is missing in Amore Cafe. But they are very similar, especially the dry down. They have like nuances of that coffee, cookie, vanilla, sugary, creamy approach, but this Be My Cookie is more on the animalic side. So they are very similar. I would say if you are one who wants something more clean and a realistic gourmand, go for Amore Cafe. But if you are one who wants something a little more complex, a little more with an oomph, a little more on the edge, then you can go for Be My Cookie, which is like on the animalic, quite musky, giving me, more of a sexy vibe. This one is the Be My Cookie gives me a more sexy vibe as compared to Amore Cafe. So those are the differences you're going to find between these two, but they smell very identical. The next two fragrances on this list are going to be Anna and Glory from Lattafa, which I have since decluttered. The turmeric in Anna and Glory was becoming a little too unbearable for me, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I have to let it go. And I've since sampled Lattafa's Artisan Ethnic, which to me is very similar to it, although very different nose structure. The nose structure do not come across as similar, but they smell very identical. However, I understand Lattafa's Artisan Ethnic is inspired by Sugar Addict, which I have a sample here. And when I smelt it, I could immediately see that Lattafa version in it. However, I feel I prefer this and then the Lattafa Artisan Ethnic over the Anna and Glory, just because it is much more blended well than the Anna and Glory. Although Anna and Glory is supposed to be this spiced turmeric, pineapple, creme brulee, there's something about Sugar Addict and then Artisan Ethnic, which gives me a very similar feel. As a matter of fact, they both smell very identical to me. I pick up nuances of the dry down of Anna and Glory in Artisan Ethnic and Sugar Addict, and I prefer this like 100% much more than the Lattafa Anna and Glory. Although to me, after testing Artisan Ethnic, I still feel I don't need to add that to my collection. I would rather get a decant, and reference it, every now and then. But I don't think after smelling that and even the Sugar Addict, I don't think I need a full bottle of Artisan Ethnic, It's very beautiful. I prefer that, I think it is much smoother than the Anna and Glory. It's dries down more beautiful with that chocolatey nuance to it, than Anna and Glory. It doesn't give me as much spice that is like not tolerable. The spice in Anna and Glory became a lot more intolerable, and I didn't like it anymore. But when it comes to Artisan Ethnic and Sugar Addict, I think it is much smoother, much of a better blend than Artisan Ethnic. So to my nose, I would rather go for Artisan Ethnic than Anna and Glory, both from the same house, Lattafa. And the last two fragrances on this list are going to be Lattafa's Nebras in comparison to Maison and Suare, which I also don't have my bottle currently. I have tried and tested Suare. I have the bottle. I always say there's something screechy about the chocolatey nuance and that cocoa powder feel that I find in Nebras and Suare. Although Nebras has never been a favorite of mine, I would 100% choose Nebras over Soiree. I don't get that intense, I don't get that good blend of the cocoa powder or chocolatey feel that I get in this. Whereas Nebras is forward when it comes to the berries, and Soiree doesn't give me much of an intense berries. I feel they are quite similar. They're actually very similar. If you have Nebras, you really do not need Soiree from Maison Ashra, but it comes across as a little more cheap smelling. The blend is not the best. The blend in this one is so much better. It comes across as more creamy, more blended well, more richer, more sophisticated, more superior as compared to Soiree from the house Maison Astra. So I would say go for Nebras, and if you already have Nebras, which I believe a lot of people already do, then you don't need Soiree from the house Maison Astra. It comes across as a little more screechy, a little more, cheap smelling with the cocoa. I think my major problem with Soiree is got to be the cocoa powder, which feels very screechy and cheap smelling, and it sort of kills the whole vibe of Soiree, in my opinion. And the fact that it was marketed as something which was not also puts me off, altogether. But I think Nebras is I know Nebras is more superior than the Soiree counterpart. So I would say maintain your Nebras if you really love that scent profile. You would not need Soiree, if you are going for something different. Even if you want to get a backup bottle, I think you are better off getting a backup bottle of Nebras than getting Soiree, So yeah, I think that is going to be it for today, and I hope this video found you well. Thank you so much. Please do not forget to continue the support, the likes, the comments, sharing the videos. I'm grateful. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video, and I hope this video found you well. Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in my next one. Take care. Bye-bye.